Okay. Induction. And we had some very interesting discussion. Welcome on the podcast, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sandrine. I'm happy to be here with you on this podcast.
So, Stephen, you've started a PhD in a UK university, but can you tell us a little bit about where you're coming from and how you got interested into science?
Oh, thank you so much for that question. I don't think there is any special motivation for me, getting into science, other than the fact that I sensed a strong sense of aptitude for science subjects, especially chemistry, physics, and biology. I discovered that quite early in the course of my secondary school education, and most especially chemistry. And that, I think, was the sole motivation for me to have charted the course of wanting to do science as a career. There is nothing, so to speak, of any motivation in my immediate environment because science is not, very popularized in Africa.
Okay, that's interesting because often people talk about, specific experiences that they had, as, through a teacher or through the environment. So as a researcher coming from Nigeria, making the decision to come and study for a PhD in the UK is not something that's so straightforward. At the end of your degree, in Nigeria, what made you want to come to the UK and also, what was your approach to actually get a PhD in the UK? Because it's probably a challenging process to make this happen.
I think everybody's trajectory is very unique, and so it is in my own specific case. I really didn't want to come to the UK particularly. The only thing I was concerned about was to do a PhD in a very good institution, in terms of strength of research and, academic things like that. I was not so very particular about wanting to come to the UK. The only thing I did was to sort of look for, a number of places where I think they have good, strong research capacity. And, by a twist of fate, I eventually got an opportunity here in the UK. And I think I got a couple of opportunities also, somewhere in Australia and then in Italy. And then when I looked at the various opportunities, I sort of went for, the best one from my own judgment and upon the advice of one of my Chinese teachers then. So there was nothing really particular about, UK itself other than the institution in which, I want to conduct the PhD itself.
So you wanted to be in a place of excellence, but, there are many such places, in the world. So how did you go about choosing the type of project or the type of, field of chemistry to work in? Because, there are so many possible projects and so many possible institutions to work.
Yeah, thanks to the fact that I had a very clear sense of what I wanted to do immediately after I graduate, from my master's degree program, which I did in China. I started searching for PhD opportunities, in various countries of the world about 9 months before I finished from my MSc degree program. And there was this interesting website I stumbled upon, findaphd.com. And I saw various lists of interesting PhD, research topics. And there was one, out of these many lists that actually resonates strongly with me and which actually matches with my, shall I say, research experience background, which is, like DNA research, construction of probes, sensors, things like that. So I saw this amazing opportunity and immediately I decided to contact the PI, the principal investigator, who now happens to be my present supervisor. So he got interested in me because he could sort of see my enthusiasm and also like robust academic profile. And he was like, oh, yeah, he's willing to accept me into his group. I should go ahead and submit an application for both admission and scholarship, and we'll see how best, he can support me.
And Stephen, can I ask you, why did it matter to you so much to do a PhD?
Because, to be honest, I like science, as a field, as a career, I actually enjoy doing anything science. That has been a passion, right from when I was in secondary school. And I was like, it might be good, interesting to sort of chart a course along that path, towards becoming, having the goal of becoming a scientist in the future. And I think a PhD is like the minimal requirement for one to actually start, a position in the academia. So to me, I see like a PhD as a tool, because I actually need it to fulfill that ambition of becoming a scientist in the long run.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned earlier is that you actually did a master's degree in China. So yes, doing master degree in China, a PhD in the UK, I mean, both of these experiences represent incredibly challenging cultural context where you have to adapt, coming from Nigeria and adapting to very different country's culture, but also professional culture, which, I'm sure are different from your country. Mm-hmm. What have you learned in that process of adapting to a very different context?
Yeah, that's a very wonderful question. I become a more globalized person in terms of thinking, in terms of interacting with people. And I think I don't really feel like being boxed. I tend to now being able to interact with people from other cultures, easily. And even though the context in China and even in the UK are like maybe widely different, but I've been able to fit into any culture, any society, with the greatest ease. And that has sort of shaped my mentality, to be able to be flexible in approaching issues, whether, it is even science or even something non-sciencey. So I've been able to interact with people from diverse cultures, see how people think, whether it is, it relates to science or even something completely outside of science. So that has sort of shaped my personality, because I can now see how even science is being done in different environment and how best I can approach even my science in a particular environment. Even though there have been cultural shocks, here and there, and one requires a very great sense of flexibility to be able to cope in different cultural scientific contexts. But I think I feel like a global person now, because I've been able to be in different environments, and that has sort of shaped my thinking, to be a better person, a better scientist.
That's really interesting. I mean, it can't have been, as easy as maybe just doing a PhD in your own country. What's been really, really challenging, and I'm asking this question in the context of maybe getting people to be aware of some of these challenges when they're receiving PhD students from abroad. What's been really challenging in being a foreigner and working in a country as somebody from the outside? What sort of challenges have you really faced that maybe people need to really pay attention to when they are recruiting PhD students or postdoctoral researchers from overseas?
Well, I think the biggest thing is for PIs to be able to accept the students as being equally as excellent, as the native student. And I won't blame, like any PI, because, yeah, a student is coming from a totally different, climate, and it's very difficult to actually ascertain if this student would eventually go on to do a very wonderful PhD research. So I think there is always that panic as to whether a student is good, a foreign student is good or not. But I think if PIs can deal with those sort of biases and just accept the students in good faith and just sort of give them, the benefit of the doubt, I think that will help like the students a lot. And just for the PIs to see them as, if they merit the admission, for instance, and they merit the scholarship, just like let them be and let them prove themselves in the course of the research, that we get to be proven. By the time the students now do excellent research, pieces of research work, they will come to realize that, oh, I've actually made, the best decision. But there is that sort of bias, like in the beginning as to whether the student is going to do a good PhD, a great PhD in the long run or not. Yeah. That's the only thing I think I suspect.